Well, hello again. It's been really wet here in Arkansas lately. It is a swamp out there. It's terrible. It just rained and rained and rained. But now we're going to get a break for a while. And I am so glad of that. The days are going to go up into the upper 50s, lower 60s. And one of the days is supposed to even hit 70, which is, I can't wait for that day. I think it's supposed to be like Thursday or something. Anyway, today is the 6th of February 2024. And we have some good news. We've got everything. We've had a really good week as far as the things I ordered. Everything came in. All of our capacitors came in, and they're all black now. Check that out, huh? I was expecting yellow ones as usual. I'm kind of glad. I've often wondered why they didn't change colors on these things. You know, blue, red, green, orange. I don't care. Anything but yellow. I was sick of it. But that's kind of neat. Everything is black. So they're all ready to go. It's going to be a change up on our future plans, by the way, on radio repair. And I got my tuner in for my HF rig. All this thing does here is it fools the transmitter into thinking it's facing a 50 ohm antenna load. That's all. It's a faker, and this thing believes it. So you can have like 3,000 ohms on one side, and this thing here will make this thing think it's facing only 50. Okay, the next thing we got our Hustler antenna in. It has come in. So we're going to be putting that up as soon as the weather breaks and it gets a little bit drier out there. I don't want it totally dry. You know, the dirt around here turns into concrete in the summertime, so I got to get that thing, the hole dug for it anyway. So that's what's going on there. But right now, we're going to go back to our little Airline 62198 chassis. And it is time, ladies and gentlemen, to start cleaning this thing. And we're going to tape off all the sockets. I'm going to show you how to do that. One guy commented, he said he got a bunch of, he used, what was it, Loctite navel jelly on his to get rid of the rust on a chassis he had. And he got the navel jelly down in here and it shorted out stuff. I don't understand how that happened. It shouldn't have done that if he'd have done it right. There's no way the Loctite should get down in there, and I'll demonstrate that as we go through the cleaning. A couple of technical items I wanted to show you, nothing heavy. One is about the transformers. Now, if you'll take a look at that, you see how that transformer looks layered? It is layered, and there's a reason for that. Why is it not one big chunk of metal? Why did they put layers like that? It's to prevent what's called eddy currents. Eddy currents, you know. When you see water flowing down a stream, it's going along pretty good. I mean, it's even, you know, a good fast trout stream, we'll say. And when it gets to a certain point, you're going to have dips in the bank of the stream, and the water is going to get in there. It's going to swirl around and try to go back the other way. That's called an eddy current. And we have the exact, and you know, you get hundreds of these things along the stream, thousands of them, and of course, in a stream like that, the water's coming through, and it just negates the eddy current. Just the stream is too heavy for the eddy current. Well, the same thing happens in a transformer. If this were one big block of metal, the current coming through the wire that forms the transformer on the inside generates eddy currents, and it heats up a big block of metal. And when it heats up a big block of metal, it decreases the efficiency of the transformer, and it keeps them from lasting all that long. So the engineers said, well, what do we do about that? But they said, well, instead of using a big block of metal, you know, let's layer this thing. Because the eddy currents, you know, if we can layer it with real thin layers, each one of those little layers will not heat up as much as a big block would. You know, in total, they wouldn't heat up as much as a big block of metal would. Before I start on the applying the Loctite navel jelly there, I'm going to clean. I've been cleaning around this socket. I wanted to show you how you know, I've got to tape off these sockets. I don't. The navel jelly will not harm the socket. Okay, it won't. but I don't want to get any down in there if I can help it. And this is the way you prevent that, and also give a place for the tape to temporarily hang on to, and you'll see what I'm talking about quickly here. Okay, it's very clean all the way around. I'll do that to each of the sockets. I'm only going to show you in one socket, so let's do the tape next. Now you know why I needed to have a little bit of clean around these sockets before I put the tape on, so it'll stick. If it's got grease or gook and crap, it won't stick, and you want it to stick. And now we're going to cut away what we don't need. You got to use a very, very sharp X-Acto knife. If you try doing this with a dull knife, all it's going to do is bunch up the tape, and then you're going to have to peel it off, start over. We're going to cut on the outside of the socket, okay? I took my fingernail and ran around the socket. You don't have to use fingernail. You can use anything you want to kind of get it up tight against the edge of the socket. Now some of these sockets are sunk in like this one here. They're not all raised like this. And you'll be doing the same thing, only this time. At that time, when you're doing this one, the sunk in ones, you'll do it around the inside with your fingernail or whatever you want to use. Use a sharp X-Acto knife and just kind of take your time. This is one of these things where you take your time, okay? Get it right up against the edge of that socket and just kind of cut around it slow and easy like. It takes two hands actually to guide the knife, especially if you're like me, you know, you got the case of the old man shakes, you know. So let me go ahead and finish cutting around and I'll come back. Alright, let's see what happens now. We're going to peel this baby off there. Hopefully it'll just leave the disc there. You got to make sure it's well cut all the way through, all the way around. But don't dull your X-Acto blade, the process of doing it, you know. You're only cutting through tape. You don't need to cut through the chassis. There we go. Well, we're doing pretty good. Pull it away. Always pull it away from the whatever it is. I don't care what it is. Working on a car, when you're getting ready to pull tape off, you should always pull it away from the area you just worked on. There we go. Alright, see there? That's what you call perfection. I need to have Buzz 1151 take a look at this. The last thing you have to do is take the back of the blade or something similar and run around the edge and pick up any little tiny protrusions. Just kind of run it around there, because we're going to leave this tape on here all through the painting process, and you don't want anything to... You don't want to remove the tape and then find out you got little bits of chassis showing through the paint you just painted. It'd be kind of a frustrating experience for you. Just kind of take the back of the blade and make sure it's nice and smooth all the way around. This is experience talking. See, there was a little piece that would have made the paint job look pretty bad. Sometimes you'll find a socket that will be down between all the components and everything, and you can only like get to like 1/2 of it. Well, that's no problem. Just put tape down, you know, clean it around the outside edge if it needs it. Put your tape down, cut the first half, then try to get down and lay another piece of tape around on the second half and then cut it. You don't have to cut them all at once. Now this type here, you know, you don't need to tape off the socket. You just put your tape across the top. Clean it up real good, as best you can, with your brush, same as before. Wipe it down with a rag. If you have to put a little alcohol on the end of the rag to get it clean, or a little whatever, you put some acetone or whatever you want to put on there to make it clean so the tape will stick. The next thing we have to tape off are the IF cans. So we throw a little alcohol in a some kind of container. You got to clean it. Don't wire brush around these things. It'll screw them up. Won't screw up the can. I mean the transformer inside or anything. But these are usually soft aluminum. Usually, I don't know what these are. They feel like aluminum. Doesn't take much to screw them up with a wire brush, even if it is brass. Okay. So just kind of clean it the best you can with a brush. Then take a rag, dry it out. Now you're not going to be putting tape on the chassis. You're going to be taping around the bottom of the IF cans, what you're going to be doing. I'll show you that in a minute. Get them all clean all the way around. I've already covered one of the IF cans. I'm going to do the second one. The reason I put a strip on the bottom here is it gives me it enables me to, you know, adjust this thing up and down as needed. It gives me something to tape to, okay? So, and I always like to use printer paper. Works great. Now normally, you know, people will take these cans off and shine them up and make them look real good, but that's not going to happen with this radio. Like I said, the radio's already operational, and on the top, holding this can on is a screw. I mean, there's a nut on a screw that sticks out through the top. There's a ton of glue around that thing, and I don't want to break it all loose, and I'm afraid if I try to put too much pressure, I'll snap that threaded rod off that the nut goes on. I don't want that to happen. Besides, it's got a sticker on there from Radio Manufacturers of America, I believe is what it is, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to take this on big long sticker that goes on the side, a decal, I guess, and I don't want to disturb that either. So we'll just kind of clean it up a little bit with the alcohol in the brush. I cleaned it up once, I'll clean it up a second time, you know, avoiding that sticker, and that'll be as much as I do on that. All right, let's see what we can do about lifting this transformer up a little bit off the chassis. Now this is a double nutted screw. There's one right there on the top, one screw with a nut on the top and a nut on the bottom. You'll see this once in a while. I don't see it very often. There's the other nut and lock washers. Got an external star washer on it. There's one on each side. Well, that's about all we're going to get out of that all the way around. So I'll clean it with the alcohol, and then we shall start derusting. Now these holes you see here, before we paint, I'll avoid these holes. I don't want any of that stuff to go down in. Will some of it go down in? Probably so, but I'm going to try my best to keep it from happening. But before we paint the chassis, I'll be taking strips of paper, cut up strips. I'll be inserting them from the bottom up, and they'll cover these holes, okay? Anywhere there's a hole. It'll be quite a tedious process, but in the end it's worth it. Now if I have a hole like this where there's nothing behind it, there's nothing down in there, like right here, I probably won't tape that one because there's nothing the paint's going to hit. You got to kind of eyeball underneath every single one. This chassis has got a lot of holes in it, and I don't know why. It's just a tiny little radio. Okay, I've got her nice and clean under there except for the rust. That'll come next. Word of caution, I've been, you know, messing around with this transformer here, and when it comes time to bolt it back down, I want to make sure I go up underneath there and make sure that all the messing around I've been doing didn't cause any of the wires or the contacts to touch anything that they're not supposed to be touched. Because if I just go ahead and bolt it down, plug it in, turn it on, bring it up on the variac, next thing you know, this thing will be shorted out before I can do anything about it, because I didn't bother to check those wires. Matter of fact, you should check all wires. Make sure. I was working on something here recently. I couldn't figure out what it was. I completely restored it. It looks perfect. Fired it up, and on my ammeter over here, it just almost pegged out. I said, what is going on? Come to find out, a solder blob had dropped off my soldering iron, and it was shorting between two contacts. I never noticed it, but if I didn't have that ammeter to tell me to get in there and start looking, I don't know what would have happened. All right, let's see what we can start doing with the rust. I like to work out of the navel jelly cap, whether I use a Q-tip or a brush. This time I'm going to go ahead and use a brush as much as I can. Just don't get too close to here. Get it as close as you can. And then I'm going to have to wet this rag out. I'll be using this rag here. Rinse it out. I'll be putting water on it after the jelly sat for a while. It may set for many hours. I don't know. So let's get started. Just going to dip it in there. I like to start from one end of the chassis and work to the other. Don't start in the middle on this. You can start in the middle on your schematics, but when it comes to this stuff, work from one end to the other. Don't be afraid to use this stuff. Just don't get it in your eyes or anything. It's phosphor. It's a very mild phosphoric acid, and it won't hurt you if you treat it right. Wash your hands when you're done. Some people like to wear a glove. If I'm using a brush like this, I don't need to do that. Just got to take your time and go slow, that's all. We're in no rush. What's a rush? No hurry, people. And you don't have to do a whole lot of an area at a time. You know? Be careful around your sockets. You don't need to get right up next to them. As long as they're nice and clean, the paint's going to take care of it anyway. I like to, and try not to breathe this stuff, okay? Back off. If you start, you can smell it. If it starts to get a little strong, back off. Go get you a glass of water or something. Just kind. That's all I'm going to do. That sort of thing, all the way from this end to that end. You will see after I've applied it once, let it set once, and wiped it all down. See if we have any improvement. Well, it's been a couple of hours, and as you can see, a lot of the rust on. I've only done half of the chassis this way. A lot of the rust has already disappeared, so we're making some pretty good progress here. And I even decided to cover up the entire power transformer to see what would happen with that. And I think I'll be able to handle this without removing that clamshell on top. I hope. The entire chassis has been derusted. It's been a 3-day job, on and off, on and off. There's spots everywhere, but I even got a lot of it underneath off without removing all the guts. But anyway, she's looking pretty good. Now it's time to clean it. And once I get it cleaned, then I'm going to go ahead and put some paint stripper on the top of this transformer. I really don't want to take the clamshell off. I want to leave it sealed. But, if I have to, I will. So let's go ahead and get the cleaning process done. The final cleaning, which removes all of the leftover navel jelly film, all this white stuff and everything. We'll get it all off the best we can. I'll show you how that's done. Now you can use lacquer thinner or you can use alcohol. It doesn't matter, 91%. The lacquer thinner is much faster though, and I think it does a better job because when you start spraying this with paint, you don't want any of the paint to bubble up because the alcohol really couldn't cut all of the film and stuff that was left on there from the navel jelly. So I'm going to pour some lacquer thinner in here, and you do this outside. Don't be doing it inside the house. You'll keel over, and then the wife will draw your insurance money and everything, and the kids will squander it away. You know how that is. Anyway, I'm just going to pour a little bit in here. Use this throwaway brush and just start scrubbing around on it. I'm not going to flood it. I just want to clean it, okay? Alright, I just put a little bit in there, not a whole lot, just barely covers the bottom. Then get it and then kind of shake it off a little bit. You don't need to have it saturated, like I said. And then just go ahead and start cleaning around. And it'll just really do a good job. Lacquer thinner does a great job. It's kind of a stinky process, but just don't lean over the top and start breathing it in, alright? So all I'm doing is I'm going to clean, clean, clean. Then I'm going to let it dry, and I'll probably come out and clean again because I'll probably miss a few spots, like right there. See, that's that white spot right there. That's got to go. Got to go. It will make it go away. Yes, we will. See, it's already gone. Cool, huh? Alright, I think that's about got it. We'll go ahead, let that dry for about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Probably a little overkill. Probably don't need that long, but we'll go ahead and let it do it. While that's drying, I'll work on this piece I cut out of the plastic for the light diffuser. And I did that, I guess, a day or so ago. And I removed all of the old diffuser off the brass collar. So what we're going to have to do is I got to now cut a hole in the center to fit that collar, which will be right about in there. I'll just take my little old moto or my rotary tool with a bit on it and just start the hole. And once I get the hole big enough, this thing right here, it just turns out that this thing right here is just about the same size as that right there. Pretty darn close. So once I get the hole big enough to fit it in, all I got to do is stick this down through, kind of move it around a little bit. Not too much because I want this to be a fairly tight fit. I cleaned it up on the wire brush on my bench grinder. Looks pretty good, I think. So let's see what I can do. It seems to me the last time I did this back in 2008, I had to make like 2 or 3. I kept muffing them up. Let's see if I can do better now. That looks pretty darn good. It fits fairly tight too, just the way I wanted it. Nice and snug. It won't fall out or anything. I'll wind up, before it's over, it'll be in the next video, but I'll put a little, if it fits and everything, then I'll go ahead and put a little bit of, I'll rough it up around here, put a little bit of super glue on the bottom of it, and then maybe a small bead of I think I bought some clear epoxy the other day. I'll put a bead of clear epoxy all the way around it. Then there'll be one more thing we have to do. Now, one more deal with this is if it doesn't fit, if it's like a little bit too big, which it might be, I'll just take a piece of sandpaper and keep sanding the edge until it catches in the wheel down below and turns when I turn the knob. So that you'll see that process next time. Let's go check on our chassis and see how it's coming along as far as drying out. I'm going to give it one more shot of cleaning. Alright, I'd say she looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and slop some of this paint thinner on our power transformer. I want to get all this done in this video. Hate to keep dragging it on, guys, but you know, I want everybody to see what I go through to get it done. You can do it any way you want. There's probably 1,000 different ways to do this. This is the only way I know how. It's always worked best for me. And you know, just my way, you got to be pretty patient, you know. Just slap that on there, and then we'll just let it sit for a while and see if we can't. May have to take a second coat, but I want to. I'll eventually tape this off. First, I'm going to paint everything in primer. Then we'll spray everything. I'll cover up the transformer. Then we'll spray everything silver, and then put a clear coat on. Then we'll work on the transformer. We'll uncover it from the paper and work on it, painting it, and get that thing looking good. It's going to look pretty good, I think. Remember, this is just a tiny little old chassis, not a big deal. Now, if in the process of you cleaning your chassis, you know, some of your socket papers roll up on the edge or something and come loose, look, we do not worry about such things. We just go ahead and replace it, okay? Well, I've run into this situation before where the paint stripper does not remove the paint. It takes like an all-day soaking. I don't know what it was with the old paint in the old days, but sometimes you run into that, and I've just run into it here. This thing's been soaking now for 3 hours, and the paint still is not bubbled up and ready to come off, but I assume it'll do it by later this afternoon. So I'm just going to stay with it, and we'll go ahead and call this video ended here. Next time we put the tuner back on, we hook up all the stuff in the front, you know, the dial and the diffuser and all that stuff. And we do change all the capacitors, any bad resistors underneath, and that'll pretty much wrap this thing up. All we got to do is we'll paint it and all that stuff. And the following video will be the cabinet, and this project will be over, I hope. So 2 more videos to go, guys. Until next time, this is John.